Welcome back to Leadership Rewired. This is Dr. Vanessa R. Brooks, and I'm so excited that you're with us on today. We are almost at 200 subscribers. Yay us. If you have not done so, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you can get notified when we provide new content. What we do here at Leadership Rewired is we help you on your business development journey, specifically if you are a high-achieving professional and spiritual woman, and you are on a journey to build out your expert-based or e-learning business. This is the place to be, specifically if you want to learn how to use neuroplasticity to help you scale your business faster. This is not just a place to come learn basic generic business development strategies. We really want to provide research-based, evidence-based, research-backed ways that you can apply the latest in psychology and neuroscience to really help you understand who you are first, to know you first, so that you can build an amazing business. And so I've been getting a lot of questions about neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and how I was able to use neuroscience to help scale my business. So I want to share that today. I have a few questions that I'll be answering for y'all today. I do have my notes because, listen, I am not a neuroscientist, but I got introduced to neuroscience back in 2015, 2016, I think it was. And then later on, I was introduced to neuroscience through a UCLA neuroscientist. I enrolled in her program where I learned so much about how to apply neuroscience to leadership. It was a neuro leadership program. I was so fascinated because for the first time in my life, I began to understand and know myself even better. I love leadership. My doctorate degree behind me there is in executive leadership, specializing in mental health and human services. And so when I learned how to apply neuroscience strategies to leadership, and I also love all things entrepreneurship. I've been running my consulting business for 15 years now full time. And so I just love everything about neuroscience, but I also love everything about entrepreneurship because I built my company from the ground up, brick by brick, learning about entrepreneurship and business as I went. And so I'm really excited to just transfer some of the knowledge that I've acquired to help maybe collapse that time for you when you are as you're building out your business. And so we're going to get into it today. Again, if you have not done so, please, please, please subscribe. I know people watch videos and sometimes we forget to subscribe. So I really need you all to subscribe to help us grow our amazing community. I am determined that by the end of this year, we'll have at least 2,000 subscribers to our network. And I know that if you give this video a thumbs up, if you leave comments and engage, if you subscribe, if you share, we'll be able to meet our goal and help more women build their businesses out this year. We're on a mission to help Black women specifically, but really all women, to close the racial and wealth gap that exists amongst specifically Black women, but really all women. And we're going to do that by helping you to understand how to know yourself through neuroscience, through that lens, also through psychology, how to apply biblical principles as well to help you scale your business faster. But yes, we also provide a lot of business development strategies as well. Everything what I love the most about our company and the work that we do here is that we are so different in that we really try to do research. We want to bring you research-based, evidence-backed frameworks and tools and practices and strategies that you can apply to your business model to help you launch and or scale your business sooner. We want to also make sure that we provide mental health and well-being strategies so that you can build your business without the burnout, without the overwhelm, without the additional stress. And so one of the ways that I have been able to do that is not just because I understand mental health, but because I learned neuroscience and how to apply those techniques and those strategies to my own business. So let's get into it today. I think that's all the preliminary stuff. I'm going to get into answering these questions that you guys submitted to me, and hopefully you will learn more about neuroscience and you'll become a neuro enthusiast like I am. Oh, before I forget, how could I forget? We released the updated version of our ebook this week. It is titled Neuroscience for Beginners, and it is going to teach you how to harness the power of your own brain to improve your life, to improve your health, to improve your relationships, to improve your business, to improve your professional life, your career, and your money. The ebook is $9.99. I will be sure to drop a link in the description block so that you can go ahead and grab your copy of the ebook today and start learning the basics of neuroscience and become just as excited about it as I am. All right. Okay. With that being said, let's get into answering these questions that you guys submitted to me. So the first question that I want to address is, what is neuroscience and why should a business owner care? So as I said before, I do have some notes, so I might look down if I need to refer to my notes. But I want to start off by talking just about my own personal lived experience because and this is no shade to anyone that is doing business coaching, okay? I promise I am not coming for anybody. I'm just sharing my journey. One of the things that happened to me, or I think the most important thing that I need to share on my business journey was that, first of all, I came into entrepreneurship knowing nothing about business at all. When I say nothing, absolutely nothing. I had been working in human services, in social services, and ended up leaving that career. And all I asked God was, how can I replace the $33,000 salary that I was making in social services? And for some reason, in that moment, I just had this idea that I wanted to start my business. Now, I did go work for a domestic violence coalition for about 6 months, which was a complete disaster that I'm not going to get into right now. And so after I decided to leave that job, that's when I really came home and got really serious about maybe the thought of entrepreneurship. Now, I don't know if any of y'all are like me. I think I got dropped off here by God to just help other aliens like myself, because sometimes I really feel like I'm just an alien passing through this earth plane, right? But in that moment, after leaving that job with domestic violence, and it was just such a disastrous experience. It was just, I was hired, wasn't trained. She hired me, and I rarely ever saw her after being hired. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just having to kind of feel my way, walking through the dark, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do all day. And when I left that job, one of the things that I realized after working both at social services for so many years, over 15 years, and then with that career and a couple of other jobs that I'd had, one of the things I began to realize was that I did not want to work in the public sector if I was not going to enjoy my workday. I am an empath, so I'm very sensitive when it comes down to energy and people's emotions. And in the moment after quitting that job and I came home, I just realized that I was burnt out from working in the public sector. And so I said to God, I need to replace my income, but I don't want to work in the public sector. So I had this light bulb epiphany that maybe I could figure out how to replace my income working at home on my own. So that was the very first time I'd ever thought about entrepreneurship. Okay. I don't have anyone else in my life at that time who was a business owner that I could glean from or even get that idea from. So I really believe that it was a divine idea, right? So I want to say this off the top. Trust those divine ideas, okay? Even if you don't know how you're going to do it, if you don't know what the first step is, you got to start trusting that inner voice, the voice of God, your higher voice, your higher self, whatever you call that divine part of you. You got to start trusting that. And you got to let go of the perfectionism and that need to control the outcome and know exactly what you're doing all the time, because we do that and we sabotage ourselves a lot doing that. Okay, I digress. So I just want you to kind of know that if you are considering becoming a business owner and you're feeling like, I know nothing about business, neither did I. Okay. And so that was the first thing I wanted to sort of share with you all so that you don't feel like you have to have all the answers up front. Because if you are truly an entrepreneur or desiring to cultivate that gift, that skill, really, you're not going to know what you're doing right away. And that's okay. So that's the first thing. And so the second thing that happened, which I just believe is divine, and I believe my business has been kept by God all this time because it was really me being obedient to this divine calling to go into entrepreneurship, even if I couldn't identify it as that at the time. But the second thing that happened that was sort of divine was that I heard this word consulting in my spirit. Okay. Again, I was a country girl. Okay, I'm from the backside of the woods in North Carolina. Okay, I did not have access to a word like consulting at that time or coaching, to be totally honest. And so I heard this word consulting in my spirit, and I think I even heard the word coaching. And so I went to my laptop. Again, this was like in 2013, I think it was 2014, something like that. And I just typed in the word consultant. Like, is there a way to become a consultant, or how do you become a consultant and work from home? I think I Googled something like that. And lo and behold, I got back all this data from Google, right? And it was a thing. Like at the time, coaching and consulting was a thing. Okay. And that's how it all started for me. And the first business that I launched as a consultant was I went to Facebook, and this was after doing about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks of research around consulting work. And the idea that I had was that I was going to help pastors with their leadership development, because at that time I had a bachelor's degree where I had learned so much about the human services helping professions, which church is a helping profession. Okay. Or church leadership is part of the helping professions. I love pastoring because at that time I was also a full-time pastor working as a volunteer, but I digress. And I loved leadership. And so I knew that I was having a hard time as a pastor trying to figure it all out and didn't have the resources, and I had to learn so much on my own. And so I had this idea that I was going to be a church consultant, right? A church leadership consultant. So I put this post out on Facebook and I said, hey, I'm just launching this brand new consulting business. I'll be providing leadership development for churches. If you're interested, hit me up. And I got hit up. And the rest is history. Okay. So that's how I got started. So I'm saying that to say, if you really feel like you want to pursue the consulting industry and or the e-learning industry, which right now, both Forbes and Inc. says these are like billion-dollar business ventures that you need to get in on right now. Okay. But if you do feel this call to the consulting and e-learning business, you need to think about what is it that you feel called to do. I think that's a good place to start, right? Because we're going to talk about business strategy, a little bit today. But before you even start working with the business strategy, as a faith-based business owner, and because I'm appealing to those of you who are also faith-based business owners, I think we have to talk about trusting that intuitive voice within you. Okay, whether you call that Holy Spirit, whether you call that the voice of God, whether you call that intuition, whether you call that your higher self, whatever you call that, I think we have to leave room in our business model for faith. And so, walk by faith and not by sight when you're trying to determine what type of consulting or coaching or e-learning you want to participate in. And it's really based on, where you feel your assets are in terms of your own intellectual capital. By the way, if you want to know more about intellectual capital, we are having a masterclass this coming Saturday where I'm going to be talking a lot about neuroscience and intellectual capital and how to identify those neurological blocks that prevent you from knowing how to monetize your intellectual capital. But I digress again. So trust that intuitive part of you that really feels like you're supposed to be doing this thing, okay, in consulting, okay? Even if it doesn't make sense, even if you don't have all the answers, start there, because you can always do the research to see if there is a viable market for what it is you're feeling called to do. So that was how I first got started. Now, and I'm getting to neuroscience. I promise I'm getting to neuroscience because I am a rambler, but I got notes so that I don't get too far off track. What I made the mistake of doing at that time in those early years of starting my business, and I shouldn't even call it a mistake because it's what most people do because we've been taught to do it. I started to invest in a lot of business coaching. Okay. I knew I needed help. I knew that I did not know enough about business on my own to try to just venture out. So the first thing I did was I hired a business coach who kind of just did a lot of the back office stuff, got my LLC, my EIN, made me some business cards, made me a little cheap website, that kind of thing. But I realized that I still did not know how to make any money. right? And so I went on a journey of trying to figure out how to get clients. And so I did all of the, the freebies. I downloaded all the freebies, all the workshops, all the master classes, all the things. So I spent the first couple of years just applying strategy after strategy after strategy, right? A lot of tactical stuff, right? The landing pages, the emails, the lead magnets, the content, all the things, the workshops, the webinars. And I'm not saying that you don't need the strategy, but what I don't want you to do is what I did, because I didn't have anybody like me around at that time. What I did not know at that time, when I was trying to learn all the strategies from the business coaches, I did not know about my brain. I didn't understand at that time, and I don't know that these business coaches understood either. But it depends on what type of neurological patterns are established in your brain that will determine really how successful you are at implementing those strategies and getting your desired results from those strategies. And I got really discouraged because I was implementing the strategies correctly, but I wasn't getting the results that I wanted from those strategies, if that makes sense. And so I just was very, very frustrated and confused and discouraged, but I also knew I did not want to go back into the public sector to work. Okay. So you gotta know that you are ready to do this full speed ahead. And so I just began to pray for help. Like, I need help, God. Okay. And I believe that God answered that prayer. One day I was listening to a YouTube, and I'll never forget. Her name is Constance Arnold. If she ever sees this video, shout out to Constance Arnold. She's a law of attraction teacher, but at that time she was also a Christian, and she was teaching the law of attraction. Now, this is my truth, y'all. Prior to that, I had not heard of the law of attraction. I had not heard of the movie The Secret. I was a fundamental, evangelical, radical, fanatical church Christian girl, okay? And so I didn't know anything about the law of attraction. And even if I had heard of it, I wouldn't have pursued it, prior to that, because I was very, very narrow-minded in my journey. And that's okay. I'm not even coming against that. I'm just giving you the backstory. But one night I was on YouTube, and I don't even know how she came in my feed, but she did. And she was talking about the law of attraction, and she was talking about Jesus, and she was talking about scriptures, and she was talking about how, your mind creates your reality. Just things I had never heard of before. And she was connecting this to a lot of the scriptures, right? So a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And it just so happened that night, she was interviewing a neuroscientist. It was a Black woman who was a neuroscientist. And I was so fascinated. I was so blown away at what I was hearing. And the neuroscientist ended up talking about this program that she had. And I knew that I needed to be inside that program. And I immediately went to the link, and I immediately signed up for this program. Okay. Because I was intrigued. She was teaching neuroscience through the lens of leadership, how to apply neuroscience to leadership coaching, right? And I knew that this was something that I needed to help me as a pastor, but also something that I needed to help me in my business, because something was missing and I just didn't know what it was. And so I enrolled in that neuroscience leadership program, and it was so life-changing and so impactful. And I learned so much. And I started to teach it at my church. I started to teach it online, got a lot of backlash for doing it. Because I was connected to a lot of narrow-minded believers at that time. And I ended up getting discouraged, a couple years into teaching it, and I kind of backed off of it because I was just getting a lot of persecution and judgment for it. But on the backside, I was still applying it to my business, and it was really changing my business because it was changing me from the inside out. So let's get into it, okay? So it's a long introduction to the question. That was a long 14 minutes. What? I think we're going to have to split these questions up over like a 5-week series, because this is getting too long. I think that's what we're going to do, which is great because I'll have content for the next 4 weeks. So here's the question. What is neuroscience, and why should a business owner care? All right. So neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, the spinal cord, and the brain, which includes the neurons, okay? And so it helps us understand how the nervous system works to produce and regulate our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, our habits, right? It's also how we regulate body functions, such as breathing, such as keeping our heart beating for us, those unconscious bodily functions, blinking our eyes, right? And so, in the context of business, why you should care as a business owner is because neuroscience also shapes how your brain thinks, how your brain makes decisions, how your brain responds or reacts to stress, how your brain responds to visibility, how your brain responds to confidence and competence and self efficacy. All of these things that we need to run our business successfully is determined by how our brain impacts all of those functions. So that's why, as a business owner, you need to care, because strategy is not enough. As I just explained to you, it took me 14 minutes to explain to you that business strategy alone, for most of us, is not going to be enough to scale your business. Now, because our brain operates on autopilot, which is what where neuroplasticity comes in. Yes, you can absolutely learn business strategy and you can see some results because your brain, once it learns a new skill and it does a new skill enough, the brain will become competent at it. So I'm not saying that business strategy alone is not going to help your business, but it's not going to necessarily help you to scale your business, because in order to scale your business, you've got to become a different version of yourself than you were when you first started your business, right? You can launch your business with just basic business development skills and strategies, but to scale it to a six-figure business model, you're going to have to become another version of yourself. And that is where neuroscience became so impactful for me, specifically neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity means that the brain has this miraculous way to rewire itself, to change, right? So whatever behavioral patterns or habits that we've adapted because we've done them over and over again, if we don't like those behavioral patterns, if we don't like those habits, if we have habits that are working against us, if we have thought processes and behaviors that work against us, that are working against our business, we can change those. And the way we change those is by training our brain. And how do we train our brain? By introducing our brain to new beliefs and new patterns of behavior, and by repeating those behaviors so much until they get hardwired into our brain so that they become a new habit for us. There's a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which is responsible for habit formation. And so when we repeat a process, or we repeat decision making, or we repeat a skill, it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, it does not become difficult for us anymore. And the way that I was able to overcome a lot of my confidence issues, the way I was able to overcome the fear around pricing my services in a way that I could actually make a profit, was because I practiced new beliefs around my worthiness. I practiced saying the price. I practiced what I was offering, what that offer was actually worth monetarily. Like, I practiced those behaviors over and over again. I practiced them so much that my brain adapted new habits around those practices, and it took the fear away. And I became confident because I had practiced it so much that new habits were forming in my brain. New pathways were forming and strengthening in my brain so that I could do those things without thinking about it. And so rather than me make decisions from a place of fear, from a place of reacting through trauma, through past experiences, my brain now had new pathways to consult, right? So if you don't have pathways for a different behavior, your brain is going to consult the old pathways, and it's going to pull data from the old pathways. It's going to go into the files in your brain, and it's going to pull out those old behaviors, those old fears, those old beliefs, and it's going to apply that to whatever new thing you're trying to do. And what's going to happen is you're not going to get any different results. You're going to get the same results that you always get because you're using the same pathways to try to make the new decisions. And that's why people feel like they're failing. They feel like they're not cut out for business because in their brain, they're doing all these things and they're not getting their results. What they don't realize is that they're trying to do something new with their old wiring. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to charge $5,000 or $10,000 for my services with the old neurological wiring that I had that told me because I was a woman of God that I should not be pursuing money, that I should wait and get my riches in heaven, because I had all these confidence issues and I had self-esteem issues. I didn't believe that anybody would pay me $5,000 or $10,000 or $12,000 for my services. And so because I didn't believe that, I would never charge that. And so belief is a neurological pathway that can be developed in your brain when you practice new thoughts long enough that those thoughts become beliefs, because a belief is just a thought that you have over and over again. And so these are the things that I learned through just practical study of neuroscience. And so that's how I was able to take the study of neuroscience, the study of the brain, and apply it to my business to get different results. I had to change my thoughts. I had to change my beliefs. I had to change my decision-making skills. I had to change my implementation skills. And then I had to change my strategies based on the new version of myself that I became, right? I offered new services because I had new pathways. I created different lead magnets because I had different pathways, right? I was able to get new insights and new downloads. I was able to research and study my ideal clients better and understand them better because I was now able to study them and research them through a completely different version of myself because I created these new pathways in my brain. So everything about me changed on the inside, which meant that my entire business changed because a new version of me was showing up to my business every single day. And I was able to make different decisions. I was able to move confidently through my business because I had new pathways that I had never had before. And that is what I want for you. I mean, even when I think about like how I process stress, once I learned about my spinal cord and my brain and how my brain, these neurons communicate with each other. And I learned about the power of breathing, like just deep breathing and how the breath work would like reset my entire nervous system, right? So all of that education around the knowledge of myself really changed the game for me because I learned, just not just practical business strategies, but I learned practical strategies that I could use to reset my entire nervous system. And so I was able to come to my business with a completely different nervous system, one that was healed of all the trauma and all of the fear. And that changed everything for me. So I want to give you a couple of practical steps that you can apply today so that you can just kind of learn how to implement neuroscience and neuroplasticity strategies to your own business, wherever you are in your business. So one of the things I want you to do is to start to notice the automatic reactions that you have in your business, right? For example, let's say that someone schedules a session with you for a strategy call, but they're no-show, they're ghosting you. Like, how do you react to that? What does your nervous system do? Do you shut down? Do you talk down to yourself? Right? What kind of internal conversation are you having with yourself? What are your thoughts around that? Does it make you quit? Does it make you postpone or delay the next event in your business? Right? Do you change everything because, somebody didn't show up to your master class? Like, I really want you to start paying attention to how you react to stress in your own business. Rather than you think, what's wrong with me or I'm being rejected, I want you to ask yourself, what is my brain doing right now? Because I can promise you what your brain is going to do. It is going to go into the files. Okay. It is going to go into the basal ganglia. It is going to go into the habit part. It is going to go into the habit formation part of your brain, and it's going to pull out files. So whatever you've done in the past, however you've responded or reacted to stress in the past, However you've reacted to feeling ghosted or feeling rejected in the past, that is exactly what your brain is going to lead you to do. Okay, so you need to start being very present with your brain. All right, you need to be very conscious of what your brain is leading you to do. Okay, because in those moments of stress, you are going to become very reactional. You're going to become very reactionary. You're going to react. And that means that you're not giving yourself time to be conscious to make a new decision. So what I ask you to do is to pause in that moment. After you listen and pay attention to what your brain is saying to you without judging it. So we practice mindfulness in those stressful moments, which means I'm not going to judge what I am seeing taking place within myself. Okay. I just want you to be mindful of what's happening inside of you. Be mindful of the thoughts that your brain is giving to your mind, right? Be mindful of what your brain wants you to do in that moment. But I want you to pause rather than do what your brain tells you to do, because it might say, just cancel the whole event, right? It might say, just change your mind about the business and go find a job. Rather than you listen to your brain, I want you to pause for 60 seconds, do some deep breathing from your diaphragm, reset your nervous system, and then ask your higher self, because you do have frontal lobes. And in order to bring your frontal lobes online, you got to ask your higher self, is there something else that I can do in this moment that is completely different from how I would normally respond to a situation like this? Okay. What decision can I make that still is in alignment with where I want my business to go? Oh, that's so good. Because your brain wants you to make an autopilot decision. Okay. Your brain wants you to live on autopilot, do what you've always done. It doesn't want you to do anything new. It doesn't want to help you become a new version of yourself. Your brain can get very lazy. It can get very stuck. But I want to help you step out of autopilot. Okay. And this is your moment to say, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to cancel my event. Okay. Maybe I need to send a new email. Maybe I need to follow up with some past clients. Maybe I need to put a new post out. Okay. Maybe I need to, change the workshop and make it better this time. How can I improve it? Maybe I can go to my Calendly or my Acuity scheduling system and create a 5-question intake form and pre-qualify people before they make an appointment. They got to pre-qualify and ask them questions to make sure that they are a good fit for what I offer. That way I don't have to worry about being ghosted. Maybe I need to charge $25 for my strategy calls so that people don't waste my time. Like, there are so many other decisions that you can make in that moment, but your brain is going to prefer that you do what you always done. Okay. So this is the power of applying neuroscience. Your brain will help you, but you have to train it. You have to rewire it for new behaviors, for new beliefs, for new ideas, for new thoughts. And what's going to happen is, once you do something new and you repeat that, and your brain sees that you're not in any danger, once your brain can see that, your brain will start to believe that you're safe in those moments, and there won't be this impulsive desire to resort back to old behaviors, right? So what your brain is looking for is safety. And if you can show your brain that you're safe by doing something new, it will trust you and it will help you to continue to do new things in the future. Okay? So this is how you stop self-sabotaging your business. This is how you can scale your business faster when you make a decision to pause, not react the way that you normally would, check in with your higher self, your prefrontal cortex, your frontal lobes, the part of your brain that can help you make higher level decisions, and get a piece of paper and write down 10 different decisions that you can make in that moment that are more aligned with where you want your business to be. It doesn't matter if you have the evidence that it's going to work. It doesn't matter if you have the resources, but what are some new decisions that you can make that are completely different from any decisions that you would have made in the past with the old version of yourself? And I promise, as you do that, you are creating new pathways in your brain. And the more you repeat this process, the stronger those pathways get. This is how you begin to scale your business and move it forward quicker and collapse the time. So this video got way longer than I expected it to get. I was supposed to answer 5 questions, okay? But that's okay. We're going to get to the other questions over the next couple of weeks. I promise you. So you got a whole week to just go back and just listen to the replay of this one, take notes. Please, please, please go and get the ebook. Again, it is called the Neuroscience. It's called Neuroscience for Beginners. It is going to bless your life. I think it's 40 pages. You can read it in a couple of days if you're real good. If you just sit yourself down, you read it in one day, I promise you. But it's got exercises in there as well that you can begin to implement to show you how to apply what you're reading in the book, okay? Reading is great, but in order to actually rewire your brain, you got to take action, okay? You need evidence-based, research-backed, inspired actions. And so that's what the Neuroscience for Beginners provides for you inside the ebook. So make sure you grab the copy today and get started. What else do I want to tell you guys? Oh, don't forget, you want to register for this week's masterclass, Lead Like a CEO. We had an amazing time this past Saturday. I cannot wait to join you again this upcoming Saturday. It's going to be amazing. I promise you, we're going to be teaching you more insights around how to use neuroscience and neuroplasticity to grow your business. We're going to show you how to use your brain to monetize your own intellectual capital. Okay, so you do not want to miss this week's Lead Like a CEO masterclass. And if you haven't done so, again, make sure that you give us a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you share this with someone in your network who's also trying to build their own consulting or e-learning business, okay? And I'll come back and see you all next week. This is Dr. Vanessa R. Brooks, Leadership Rewired. We'll talk to you soon. Grace and peace and blessings, love and light. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.